is about 3 billion at least. And FDI potential for the next 10 years is over $170 billion. That's why our President's new 5-year development strategy focuses on the following key areas in order to capitalize existing opportunities into investments, jobs, and economic growth. First, it's improving transport connectivity in the world. And all of you know that Central Asia is, as I said, landlocked. Uzbekistan is double landlocked. As a result, our country faces high trade and logistic costs. That's why we are working on developing new transport corridors to China through Kyrgyzstan and to the south through Afghanistan and Pakistan. And completing these projects will open new markets and bring together the populations of more than 3.2 billion people and give access to our regions to the seaports. We also need to join efforts in attracting to the region 20 million tons of potential transit by developing regional logistics and lowering transit tariffs. We could also cooperate in developing multimodal transport network by creating logistics centers and promoting container shippings. Second is the developing of the regional value chains. Nowadays, Central Asian countries mainly export primary products, and while imports largely consist of manufacturing products. But on the other hand, our economies are complementary to each other in terms of labor, land, energy, and other resources. Therefore, we see significant opportunities in integrated regional production in many sectors, such as energy, food processing, textiles, chemicals, car making, and electronics. For example, just some examples, 3 years ago, Uzbekistan established a joint co-productions with Kazakhstan and electric household appliance manufacturing with Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan. There are also more than 1,000 enterprises in different sectors like food, textile, apparels, and other established by our Kazakh, Kyrgyz, Tajik, and Turkmen investors in Uzbekistan. We want to expand this and such a cooperation. In particular, we suggest to jointly use cluster approach in priority production industries. Such approach would help in strengthening vertical and horizontal cooperation between our economies, and it would also help in marketing regional brands on a global scale. Third is cooperation in services. And we see huge opportunities in, as everywhere, in digital economies, telecommunications and IT, tourism, construction, education, and health-related services. In our view, joint efforts are needed to invest in the regional communications infrastructure. It is to be developed. And Uzbekistan is already working on liberalizing telecoms industry. Our government will gradually sell, we just announced that we will sell shares in mobile operators and create equal opportunities for all market participants. We could also jointly implement one tour, one region program in developing intra-regional tourism. And we hope that other countries of the region, we started it with Kazakhstan, and other countries of the region will join us in the Silk Visa initiative. The population of our countries is about 80 million people. It's a huge consumer market with significant potential for growth in the services. And combined GDP of all our countries is about $300 billion. And young and growing population of the regions means stable demand for education and health services. Fourth is facilitating the regional trade. And according to our estimates, Uzbekistan unrealized export potential to Central Asia is about 600 million. And I believe that other Central Asian countries have at least similar unrealized trade opportunities. And that's why we should work together to remove all tariffs and non-tariff barriers. And one of the possible solutions might be border trade zones. We have already agreed to establish 2 such trade zones with Turkmenistan in Kharizm and Bukhara regions, and 2 more similar zones to be established with Tajikistan and Kazakhstan. And joint steps are needed to eliminate non-tariff barriers to bring technical regulations and sanitary standards together. And we think that coordinated efforts are also required in the field of digitalization of customs and unification of custom procedures. And through joint efforts, our countries can turn Central Asia into an economic trade hub and transparent transport corridor between Europe and Asia, as I was said before today, it used to be during the gold age of the Great Silk Road 10 centuries ago. In conclusion, I am looking forward to participate in the fruitful discussion of our roundtable today and discuss with you how our countries could foster regional cooperation. Thank you very much.
I have recently visited the Fergana Valley, and I have seen Uzbekistan's trade potential, export potential in action. Every piece of land is utilized. People work very hard, and I think you are on the right way. Now we turn to our second keynote speaker, Minister of Investment from Pakistan, Muhammad Asfar Ahsan.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum and very good afternoon, everyone. Distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I want to thank the Uzbekistan government for inviting us here at the Tashkent Investments Forum. And I congratulate the President of Uzbekistan and his team at Board of Investment Uzbekistan for hosting this productive conference. As far as Pakistan and Uzbekistan are concerned, Uzbekistan is our spiritual brother. And I'm here as the representative of Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan, and the government of Pakistan to share the Pakistan's perspective on the topic. 2 weeks back, the President of Uzbekistan visited Pakistan and we hosted him for 2 days along with 60 plus business leaders from Uzbekistan and the government officials. And these exchanges are very important, and now the relationship between Pakistan and Uzbekistan are very good. And we are optimistic about further strong relationship in the future, as our few investors from Pakistan are willing to invest in Uzbekistan, and same is the case of Uzbekistan investors in Pakistan. So this mutual cooperation is very important. Ladies and gentlemen, Pakistan and Uzbekistan are poised to play a major role in the future political and economic disposition of the region. The two countries are fortunate to be held by leaders who have the vision, will, and determination to work together to steer their countries and their region towards a brighter future. Pakistan has deep and shared historic connections with Uzbekistan, especially with regard to culture, art, crafts, and traditions. Its cities like Samarkand and Bukhara have been the centers of Islamic civilization and learning. It is a delight to know that there are around 3,000 common words between Urdu and Uzbek languages, which is another common ground shared by both countries. Diplomatic relations between Pakistan and Uzbekistan were established when it gained independence from the Soviet Union in 1991. Pakistan was among the first countries to recognize Uzbekistan's independence in 1991. PIA, the Pakistan International Airlines, was among the pioneers in opening the skies of an independent Uzbekistan and connecting it to the outside world. And in next 1 or 2 months, we are expecting the direct flights operation again from both countries, from PIA and Uzbek Air. Ladies and gentlemen, connectivity is our biggest asset. Geography makes Pakistan the shortest, most economical, efficient, and easiest connectivity route for Central Asia to the Arabian Sea, particularly for Uzbekistan. Pakistan can facilitate Uzbekistan and other Central Asian countries' trade with the world using its seaports. Both countries are the immediate neighbors of Afghanistan and have more at stake than any other regional player in the peace and stability of Afghanistan. Our futures are tied with a stable Afghanistan, without which the dream of Central Asia, South Asia connectivity cannot be realized. Under the Vision Central Asia policy, Pakistan aims at an enhanced, tangible, effective, result-oriented, and long-term sustainable engagement with Central Asian countries by forging strategic partnerships. The policy has 5 pillars: political, trade and investment, energy and connectivity, security and defense, and people-to-people exchanges. Both countries are members of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, OIC. Pakistan hosted the OIC meeting in last 3 days, and the Deputy Foreign Minister of Uzbekistan also participated. The second is ECO, Economic Cooperation Organization, and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO. Ladies and gentlemen, Pakistan follows a liberal investment regime and offers lucrative investment opportunities to both local and foreign investors in various sectors of the economy. There are ample opportunities for foreign investors to invest with 100% equity or joint ventures in various fields. Repatriation of investment and profit are allowed with legal protection provision under the Acts of Parliament to foreign investment. Sectors such as textile, cotton, pharmaceutical, surgical instruments, education, and tourism offer complementaries and business opportunities. There is immense potential for cooperation with Uzbekistan in the pharmaceutical sector. The law of the Republic of Uzbekistan on economic zones, adopted in 1996 to regulate foreign trade activities, including transparency of trade activities, as well as impartiality of regulatory measures for all parties involved, has similarities with the special economic zones in Pakistan. In this regard, we welcome Uzbek companies to visit Pakistan's special economic zones, which provide a great opportunity for prospective investors to invest in the 22 notified special economic zones independently or through joint ventures with their Pakistani counterparts. Pakistan also offers special incentives in its special economic zones to the investors in enhancing productivity and reducing cost of doing business, with the overall objective to accomplish economic and industrial development goals. The Board of Investment, Government of Pakistan, acts as a focal point of contact for existing and prospective investors, both domestic and foreign, to provide them all necessary information and assistance in coordination with other government departments, agencies, and federal and provincial level. My dear friends, to reduce the compliance burden on businesses, especially those in the SME sector, small and medium enterprises, the Prime Minister of Pakistan approved the launch of Pakistan Regulatory Modernization Initiative, establishing a steering committee for implementing PRMI activity, and designated the Board of Investment as the lead agency. About 120 plus public sectors projects data involving an estimated cost of $60 billion have been collected by the Board of Investment from various federal and provincial stakeholders. BOI has undertaken the initiative to make investment-related information pertaining to incentives for investors in various sectors available on a special incentive portal. BOI is also working to improve the templates of bilateral investment treaties of Pakistan with foreign countries. In this regard, Uzbek companies are welcome to contact the Board of Investment, Islamabad, to materialize the immense export potential, encourage diversification in knowledge-based sectors, and enhance a new level of global economic connectivity through effective advocacy, investment promotion, and facilitation. In last 2 days, I had several meetings with government officials and ministers, and the advisor to President is here also, Deputy Minister of Investment is here also. And we proposed, because earlier Uzbekistan and Pakistan hosted 2 business forums as well. And now from Board of Investment, we are proposing the annual business forum between Pakistan and Uzbekistan on a yearly basis, once in Tashkent and once in Islamabad. So this will also help both countries to explore opportunities of collaboration and joint ventures. And we are willing to do the outreach for both sides. As Chairman, Board of Investment and Prime Minister's Special Representative, I assure my best facilitation and assistance for Uzbek investments in Pakistan. Our dedicated team at Board of Investment, our foreign missions, and our embassies are all open for support investment endeavors. Thank you for your kind attention.
Let me now turn to Deputy Minister of Investment and Foreign Trade of Uzbekistan, Mr. Badruddin Abidov. I know Uzbekistan has recently been granted the GSP Plus status by the EU and a similar status with the UK. You're also negotiating, and you are the chief negotiator, in fact, of the WTO on behalf of Uzbekistan. On GSP Plus, question is, which particular sectors of the economy, which products are likely to benefit the most from admission to the EU on the terms of GSP Plus?
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Distinguished participants of the session, well, indeed, as it was mentioned today during the plenary session by His Excellency President of Uzbekistan, our country is expanding its foreign economic relations with all countries and major trade partners of our country. And of course, in particular, responding to a question, EU has also a special role here because we have received the beneficiary status of the generalized system of preferences plus from European Union. So it was a unique process because it's become first time ever in the history of our country to get such a access to a huge market, nearly 500 million people living in European Union countries, and we become the 9th country in the world to get such a status, beneficiary status of the GSP Plus. This status allows us to export Uzbek products to EU markets with a quantity of 6,200 items duty-free, so which allows our producers to supply export products to the 27 EU countries. Of course, this includes many products which are produced in Uzbekistan and also driver sectors which are developing in our country. For example, we have agricultural products and textile products which is very quite demanded in the EU market, leather industry, shoes, also transport equipment, and also mineral resources, petrochemicals, building materials, ceramics, metal, and technological equipment, many other products. And also this GSP Plus framework provides not only export opportunities, but also investment opportunities, because Uzbekistan is strengthening its investment climate and attractiveness. So EU entrepreneurs, EU business people can come and also invest in our economy and those driver sectors, so which will enable us to have our export volumes expanded and also to create new jobs in our country, so to also to poverty reduction and also many other social impact. Of course, we'll be working closely with EU colleagues and so besides enjoying such a scheme of beneficiary status, we also have a commitment to implement under this GSP Plus framework. So there are 27 international conventions to which Uzbekistan exceeded in the areas of human rights, labor standards, effective management, and also environmental protection. So we will be fully implementing these commitments, and so we will be working with EU quite extensively and also actively. Thank you.
If I may, an immediate follow-up question, a very short one. On WTO, where do you currently stand in the consultation process, and what are the main sticking points?
So, well, WTO accession is reactivated thanks to the initiative of the President of Uzbekistan in 2017 at the end of this year, and then throughout this period we have managed to re-establish and reactivate all the institutional framework and also negotiation process. And so in 2020, we had despite the COVID-19 pandemic, we have managed, by support of the WTO members, to resume talks, a negotiation process. So we had a meeting of the Working Party on accession of Uzbekistan, which was established. So we had good support of member states. So now we are advancing in the process. So now we are preparing for the next meeting of the Working Party, 5th meeting. So we have negotiating with member states on specific commitments on goods and also services, but also there is a multilateral process on the access, harmonizing our legislation to the norms and standards of the GATT and WTO. So of course, as it was mentioned by our head of state today, we will accelerate this process so to become member of the World Trade Organization and the multilateral trading system in the coming years soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to approach your colleague, Mr. Kanatbek Abdurrahmanov, Deputy Minister of Economy and Commerce of Kyrgyz Republic. For those who know or don't know, Kyrgyzstan was the first country to join, the first CIS country to join WTO as far back as 1998. 1998.
98, yeah.
Yeah. And moreover, it took you less than 3 years to go through the whole process of consultation. I think it was a world record. Would you have any tips to share, any lessons learned from this process with your colleagues in Uzbekistan?
Yes, thank you, dear Mr. Levini, Your Excellencies, dear participants of today's round table. First of all, I also would like to express our gratitude to the government of the Republic of Uzbekistan for traditionally warm hospitality, reception, and invitation to take participation in today's investment forum. Today's forum provides us a unique opportunity enhancing the level of interaction among our countries and key aspects of trade transformation in the region. We are also sincerely glad that after a long break, today we have an opportunity to meet face-to-face, since, of course, the remote communication cannot substitute the live meetings. Regarding today's topic, we also would like to highlight that its relevance and importance to the region is very critical, especially taking into account current challenges, geopolitical tensions, post-COVID economical recovery, and in this context, of course, we need to join our efforts to overcome and to find new solutions and tools to find a way to develop our trade among countries, but also to integrate into the global trade system. Our geographical proximity, also close relation, common cultural and historical background between the Central Asian countries have also been great importance and in the sustainable and steady development of the region. As we see in the last two decades, Central Asian countries have benefited significantly from increased integration into the global economy. The expansion in trade has been a main driver of growth, contributing to significant gains and reduction of poverty and shared prosperity in the region. However, the region may be reaching a tipping point with the easier gains of trade mostly realized and prospects for the further expansion of trade being limited by economic fundamentals, investment climate issues, and shortcoming in policy trades. Fortunately, despite existing challenges and recent turbulence, the medium and long-term outlook for the region is favorable, not only because of its central geographic location, but also to the growing demand for its natural resources, labor, and its potential in getting access to the wider Eurasian market. The region is in the middle of the Eurasian continent and should be able to benefit from closer interregional connectivity, deeper ties with traditional partners and growing trade relations with some fast-growing economies, first of all, of course, such as China, India, Turkey, and European Union countries. Going to the existing challenges, it is necessary to say that despite of a long history as a center of global trade, today's economic structure of Central Asia is one of the low in terms of density and long distances. The combined population of the countries in Central Asia is approximately about 70-75 million, which is spread unequally over a relatively large geographical location or area, including high mountainous territories, large deserts, and very limited connectivity. Here, I also would say that Kyrgyzstan, as was mentioned earlier, was one of the first countries in CIS region who embarked on the ambitious program of reforms oriented on trade liberalization. And as a result of these efforts, in 1998, Kyrgyz Republic was access to the WTO organization. Besides, at the moment, Kyrgyz Republic or our market has also membership in EU GSP Plus system. Apart from that, it is also necessary to say that we are also member of the Eurasian Economic Union. So this all also opens additional opportunities to access to the larger population and larger markets such as Eurasian market exceeding more than 180 million population, and also to the European Union market with the exemptions of taxes and duties, as was already mentioned by my colleague Mr. Abidov, which provides exemption for more than 6,000 items of goods. So here we have common goals, common objectives in terms of going and liberalizing our trade policy, but at the same time we have challenges of physical infrastructure, since Kyrgyz Republic, as we all know, is landlocked and doesn't have access to the seaports, sea routes, and this also creates additional obstacles and decrease the competitiveness of our goods when we are trying to export to the foreign markets. According to different estimations, the cost of transporting our goods to European market, for instance, can be more than 40% of the production of its goods themselves. So, which means that the competitiveness of our production is very dependent on the effectiveness of our supply chains, on our transport corridors, and other ways of trading. So here, government of the Kyrgyz Republic pays significant attention to development of transport and logistic infrastructure, primarily in terms of increasing in the regional logistics, but also to the global transport hubs and corridors. These measures, from our opinion or view, can stimulate in the acceleration of the overland transport and, of course, reduce its costs in order to, as I have already said, to make it more competitive. Well, at the moment, we are developing several major transport corridors, around 13 transport routes under the construction or modernization. Besides, of course, one of the most largest transport projects for the Kyrgyz Republic in the nearest time is the new railroad China, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan. Its successful implementation will significantly improve the transit potential not only for our country but for the entire region, which will subsequently also connect to the Europe and Asia. Talking about short-term objectives, we need to make joint efforts to develop existing and define and form new, maybe, transport corridors such as Kashgar, Irkeshtam, Osh, Andijan, Tashkent. This is a multimodal transport corridor which in turn can also increase the competitiveness of Central Asian states in the global transport services market and quality of transport services for foreign trade flows. Also, another perspective project which we also need to elaborate and to develop is another multimodal transportation along the route of the Bandar Abbas, Islamic Republic of Iran, which will provide us access to the sea port and further along the railway route through the Islamic Republic of Iran to Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and to Kyrgyz Republic. We suggest that this to consider the possibility of joint work and joint development of this route and to use of ports located in the Caspian Sea. Besides, the development of cooperation with the framework of the Trans-Afghan corridor will provide Central Asia with the shortest access to the ports of Indian Ocean and the Persian Gulf, and will enable us to connect South and Southeast Asia with the markets of Europe and China. Dear participants, in recent years we all have seen that technological transformation also has a significant impact on our economies, on our day-to-day life, and of course we need to also to pay significant attention and to use this opportunity to reduce existing physical maybe distances and to introduce more cost-effective supply of services which can eventually provide more efficient productivity, export growth, job creation, and will also help to adapt to the new challenges such as COVID-19. So this already was seen in the last few years, so I would not go into deep details regarding the digitalization of the trade, but we also need to develop e-commerce in the region, and we have a huge potential to become a Central Asian e-commerce trade hub. So we see that this opportunities also opens to the Central Asian region new routes and new tools to develop electronic trade, e-commerce, and become, as I said, a sort of center of logistics and e-commerce connecting the trade flows of East and West. In conclusion, let me say that successful regional cooperation will allow us to achieve concrete results in solving existing problems and improve the well-being of our region only in joint efforts. I'm convinced that we have all the necessary prerequisites for stable, sustainable, open and dynamic development based on our common history, our grassroots, our culture, and common future objectives. Thanks a lot for your attention.
I did not count, but I think you've used the word jointly more than 10 times. And I think it's important.
Key word.
It is about cooperation, especially when we're talking about trade corridors. This is not something that a single country can undertake on its own. We spoke about special preferences, generalized GSP plus in the context of Uzbekistan, in the context of Kyrgyzstan. I will go to you with my next question. I've lived many years in Georgia, and Georgia is yet another GSP plus member of this GSP plus club. Problem is, for Georgia, that it never had the products that would meet all other requirements in terms of competitiveness and quality and consistency of supply. So the regime was there, the possibility to export under the GSP plus was there, and it's not even far away. It's not like Kyrgyzstan, 5,000 kilometers away. No, it's very close. There is a sea connection, but the product was not there. Now, I'm looking at Deger Kurtaslanoglu, and I'm improved, because he wears, as I said, two hats, and he is a private sector, and one hat is the head of AmCham, American companies coming to operate in Turkey, and increasingly also in Central Asia. The other one is Procter & Gamble. Now, the very model of Procter & Gamble involves, among other things, integrating local suppliers into your global supply chain, into your global value chain. You know, I wonder, you know, if such a perspective of such investment, such companies as Procter & Gamble is relevant also for our region, for Central Asia. Please share your experience.
Thank you very much, dear Eric, dear panelists, dear guests. Thank you very much for inviting us to Uzbekistan. So I have a role in Procter & Gamble as General Director responsible from Caucasus and Central Asian region. Also, I am honored to be here at this panel today representing American Chamber of Commerce, Turkey, as the Procter & Gamble is one of the main participants of it. I will be representing also the US business in Turkey. Especially right now, thank you for inviting us to timely meeting as there is a dynamic global value chains emerging, and I'd like to highlight some of the comments how we can jointly create global value chain. So as AmCham Turkey, our main goal as an institution is to carry Turkey to global markets. We are building our actions on these targets, mainly taking strength from three main key pillars. First, our contribution to investments, employment, and exports. Right now, we represent $50 billion investment, 100,000 employees, and $10 billion of trade volume. Second, our capability connect our local business partners with global value chain. Last but not least, developing world-class talent, sustainability, diversity, and inclusion programs. When we look at 2022, we seek to continue to keep the existing US investments and trade in Turkey and support to attract more investment, US investments and trade to Turkey, promote more regional hubs, participate in the development of talent, and pursue greater participation in global value chains. Central Asia is a geostrategic importance to both Turkey and Europe. Central Asia, first, strategic geographical location at the crossroads of Europe and Asia, share in European Union energy imports, and the market potential of 70 million people, making the region as an important partner for Western countries. In the recent crisis and challenge of rerouting European exports, it is important to take fast actions with a flexible approach. Just to give an example, I can pinpoint Turkey's extremely flexible and fast action plan to substitute Chinese exports in the COVID period, which is reflected to export figures in 2021. So flexibility and fast action gain importance in responding to investor preferences, should we go along with the regional cooperation and trade agreements. Also, I'd like to add US companies doing business in Turkey and they are our Turkish partners. AmCham Turkey's vision is based on the findings of report by PricewaterhouseCoopers, claiming US investments have transformative impact in their host country. When we say transformative, because US investments leverage innovation and facilitate greater development through production capabilities and employment. In the recent crisis of COVID, we have been preoccupied with the question how we can bring Turkey to forefront in the global value chain, which is disrupted by the COVID. Our members have contributed a greater global value chain participation through expanding, diversifying local suppliers against supply shortages, supplier development programs, supporting the business continuity of the domestic suppliers by procuring goods and services sustainably despite challenges in the decreasing and variability of the consumer demands, and capital investments. We see local suppliers are key partners, and their cooperation with our members in Turkey opens global doors as it brings them closer to global quality and production standards. So it's a transfer of power. I would like to give one concrete example from Procter & Gamble, how we enabled small, medium enterprises and entrepreneurs who like to open the global doors for global value chain. As P&G Turkey, for our local production, we are working with approximately 750 suppliers yearly, and out of them, 450 are based in Turkey. And in these 450, 89 of these local suppliers export goods worth of 173 million to other P&G production facilities located in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So this is the outcome of Procter & Gamble's 35 years of sustainable investment in Turkey, in the country. So, based on our evaluation, we suggest the local suppliers should focus on the long term and be patient, focus on quality cost optimization and digitalization in production to ensure price competitiveness in the markets, invest in capacity and human resources, participate in international fairs, develop advanced planning and scenario management, thus to better position themselves to successfully enter global markets. And for stronger regional trade, countries, based on our evaluation, need to concentrate on steps to improve trade with neighboring countries, stronger lobbying activities in the target markets, more private and public sector consultation in trade-related matters, for example, joint economic commissions, free trade agreement negotiations. And when we say free trade agreement negotiations, I like to also highlight the importance of officially launching Turkey-Uzbekistan free trade agreement as soon as possible. Also entering US mainstream marketplaces like Amazon or eBay, and also establishing a consolidation center to decrease the cost of logistics while we are producing cost and price-effective products. Thank you very much for listening to me. This was all my insights.
I very much hope we will soon have local suppliers in Uzbekistan, and maybe also Kyrgyzstan and Pakistan. All the countries represented at this round table.
450, at least.
At least. We set a target for ourselves. In fact, what you are doing, at least one aspect of your operation, is something I would call aggregation. So you're aggregating product of smaller producers, your people, companies in your supply chain, and you facilitate their access to global markets. And we're trying to do the same here in Uzbekistan, focusing on the agricultural value chain, which also needs integrators and aggregators, people who can take the product to premium markets, be it South Korea, Japan, or Europe for that matter. We now have two speakers left, and I would like to go in the private sector first, and then we go to Klaus Mangold. The question will be about technology, if you don't mind, and telecoms. Since you, Kaan Terzioglu, you represent a telecoms company, a very large, very substantial telecoms company. The question is a little bit surprising, perhaps, for you, but I recently visited Tajikistan, and I interviewed one of the largest telecoms company in Tajikistan. What he told me is that countries in this part of the world actually have very different terms of access to internet. So Tajikistan, which happens to be at the very end of the value chain, is paying 4 times more than Kazakhstan at border. Now, I would imagine that this is a very serious issue, and I wonder what is your perspective on that, and then anything you can offer us on technological cooperation in the region, development of the tech ecosystem would be very much welcome.
Eric, thank you very much. For the benefit of our audience, maybe I say a couple of words about VEON. We are one of the top 10 telecom companies in the world in terms of number of subscribers. We serve 220 million subscribers in 9 countries. And actually around this table, there are 3 ministers from the countries that we are very proud to serve. You wouldn't know the name maybe VEON, but I'm sure you would know the name Jazz, the #1 mobile operator in Pakistan with 75 million subscribers. Beeline Kyrgyzstan, one of the largest mobile operators and also a big investor in fintech. And of course, Beeline Uzbekistan, which we are very proud to service this beautiful country. We also operate in Bangladesh, in Kazakhstan, in Algeria, in Russia, in Ukraine. And please allow me to take a moment to express my deep regret in terms of what's going on. 2 of the markets that we proudly serve are in a geopolitical hostility of a magnitude which I would call a humanitarian crisis. 25 million subscribers we have in Ukraine are being supported by our 3,900 heroes day and night trying to keep the network in Ukraine on. It is really heartbreaking, and unfortunately this is not the first time I see refugees and what they need. Before I was a chief executive officer of a Turkish mobile company when the Syrian crisis happened, and when 3 million refugees entered into the country, I noticed that the first thing a refugee, when they enter in a refugee camp, is the password of a Wi-Fi. And I think it tells a lot that as telecoms companies, we serve a very big underlying need, an essential service, a humanitarian service, a human's right, which defines our livelihoods, which defines the dignity of the people and freedom to live, freedom to speak. I have to also admit that we live in quite interesting times. Trade is what we are talking about. Every day we open our eyes to a world with more limitations, more sanctions. And I hope everybody sees that it is time for us not to talk about polarization, but when it comes to serving people with the humanitarian needs, essential needs, I hope the world will never fragmentize internet, which is the fundamentals of trade and value creation. Today in the morning, I listened very carefully all the speakers from EBRD, WTO, of course, Mr. President himself, and I heard a very important notion, eradication of poverty. Wealth is created only by one means, increasing the productivity. Today, I'm sure every one of us understands where the productivity comes, to the companies, to the businesses, to the economies. It comes from technology. It comes from digitalization. And it is absolutely necessary that we focus on those issues raised today in these discussions. How do we create the digital infrastructure? How do we make sure that availability and affordability of internet is there in the countries that are trying to eradicate the poverty? You mentioned about Tajikistan 4 times. In the countries that we serve, Mr. Ministers would know very well, for the price of a cappuccino you can have in Paris, you can get internet access for 1 full month. And I think that's the type of capabilities that we need to build. Every day that we connect one more person in one more country is a contribution to the eradication of poverty. I also would like to be realistic in certain things and have a couple of call for actions for maybe for the listeners in the audience. Number one, we need to prioritize bringing 4G for all. Not vanity technologies. It's not about, 5G. In the markets that we operate, we need 4G for all, not 5G for few. Digital infrastructure is not for TikTok. It is for bringing healthcare to people at the lowest cost. It is for bringing education services to the communities at the lowest cost. And I believe the private-public partnerships with mobile operators and the governments will be critical. I would like to also make a couple of calls. EBRD, IFC, our countries need long-term investors. No telecom company in the world today is rich enough to have their own exclusive networks. Please fund the independent infrastructure operators when it comes to towers, fiber deployments. These countries do not have means to access 30-year-long bonds, but you can make a difference here. I also heard that there are lots of representatives from international finance organizations, IMF. Please, when you visit countries who are in the frontiers of eradicating poverty, please do not advise them to increase indirect taxation. Taxing internet services is the worst thing to do for the economic development for an emerging markets country. We have to increase the availability, affordability. Availability will increase through sharing networks, through sharing infrastructure in between our operators, and affordability will come from cheap, tax-free internet services. I believe over the next couple of years, as countries in this region improve their trade ties and move well beyond the 5% of the economies that represent today, it will be evident that it is not only about the trade, but information about trade, the data about trade will create value. Today's oil is data, and Central Asia is a data-producing region. All the countries in our region should focus on their data sovereignty. Uzbeki data should stay in Uzbekistan, needs to be processed by Uzbekistan engineers. Digital services needs to be created in Uzbekistan, running on the Uzbeki data centers. The same thing is true for Pakistan and Bangladesh. And our ability to process data and move from raw data to digital services will define the speed of success. As WION, we focus on transforming ourselves from being traditional telecom companies to being digital operators. An operator doesn't sell any more number of gigabytes, which means nothing to the people, but provides entertainment services, financial services, education services, healthcare services. And I believe with the right public-private partnership dialogue, we can make it happen and eradicate poverty from this region. Thank you very much.
Well, you left me speechless. Well, you said, and I think others said as well, we are living through interesting times, as the Chinese proverb goes. Klaus Mangold, how do you see the future? You have the crystal ball, right? At least from the trade perspective.
Before I see the future, I would like to thank our hosts for inviting us to this very important gathering, and I believe as well that we were witnesses today of a report from the president of Uzbekistan, that he could tell us what has been achieved with a lot of dynamics only in a couple of years. And I believe this was very interesting to see what the country was undergoing as a process in only a few years. He was only talking about 6 years. And this is a short period of time when you are looking to the world and as far as it's changing. And he was mentioning as well that we are undergoing now a major process of change. The world is changing. But is the world changing? And this is a question you raised, Eric. Is the world changing to the positive, or is it changing to a more critical situation? I believe that when we are talking about trade, WTO and everything, we are talking before the background of really a disruptive development if it comes to politics. I would not like to go to details, but what we see today in the world as well, in some parts, which is characterized not in this region, but in other parts of the world, is a little bit something which has to do with disruptive developments. We are talking on the one hand about globalization, but we are talking as well about sanctions. And so I believe really that this is something where we will see that globalization in a period of 5 to 10 years always is risky. But we have to look forward in which way we manage this. And I believe Central Asia, and I have an industrial background. I was working my whole life in industry, and most in the automotive industry. And the automotive industry is certainly one of the most integrated industries as far as supply chain is concerned. If you are organizing supply chain worldwide, you have easily in a car 1,500 to 2,000 suppliers. So to bring this together only is successful if you have a free trade system. And this is why, Mr. Rebo, the overall situation of WTO is so important, and that we have to look as well from Europe to Central Asia in a way which brings both of us together. You have privileged partners in your neighborhood. This is Russia and China. But I believe that Europe as well is extremely interested to bring Central Asia closer to Europe, and you should be interested to bring Europe closer to Central Asia. And I believe this is something where I have seen as well, that just in Uzbekistan, but as well in the neighborhood countries, the leadership of these countries is doing a lot to improve what we need for a free trade area. This starts with education. And I was very happy to learn from the President what he believes should be done even more in the future for education. And the skills we need for a modern economy, which is so much integrated, depends on education, on modern universities, and it depends as well on an infrastructure which is linked with IT and telecommunication. And digitalization without investment in people will never work. It will never work. And trade and the whole chain between financing, investment, industrialization, trade, and finally logistics is only possible if you have a digital basis for this. And that's the reason why I believe that we need so much education and a free access to the overall question of having a free trade market area. And I'm very happy as well to see that this will only possible and if we are doing more privatization up to now. Privatization and together with SMEs will be attractive for investment in new technologies. And all this together, I believe, leads to a modern infrastructure of industry and trade. And let me make one word as well as far as logistics is concerned. Logistics are very often underestimated, but you, Minister, you were pointing out the importance of logistics very much so. And I believe that when coming from a European point of view, logistics is something which is a first priority if it comes to bring continents closer. And it cannot be possible to bring a truck from Europe to Uzbekistan for a logistic price of 20,000 euros. This simply doesn't work in the future. You need, I believe, a new system of logistic interconnection between Europe and Central Asia if you would like to intensify industrialization. And therefore, I believe that the investment in roads, in air cargo, and in the infrastructure in all Central Asian countries is so important. Otherwise, it will not be possible. We are talking about a lot of investments in textile. Textile certainly will be one of the key pillars for the industrialization of Uzbekistan. But if you would like to bring shirts or whatever to Europe or to other parts of the world, you need cheap logistics. Otherwise, it will not work. And I believe that this is a key issue. And I believe as well what you mentioned from the experience of your company, as far as the supply chain is concerned, we have, and I believe this is a very important point, we have in Europe a new legislation which commits you as a seller of products in Europe to respect certain international standards. You mentioned this for your business. I believe this is extremely important, and this will shift production from some parts of the world closer to Europe, which have a very high sophisticated level of well-educated and skilled people. I, as an entrepreneur, have to take the responsibility for respecting human standards from Bangladesh to other parts of the world. So I have to take a commitment to control the value chain, not only for production, but as well for merchandising, as well for logistics. So this is an opportunity for Central Asia, a huge opportunity, which will shift production from some parts of Asia closer to Europe. So I believe, and now the answer to your question, Eric, is the future more promising or is it more skeptical? It's promising. It's a world full of opportunities, in a world of change. I believe this is always something where we have to tell young people that they should be able to be open to new and modern developments and to look forward in which way they are as well skilled to do this. And again, without education, without modern universities, without investing huge amount of monies from all the major donors in the world, I believe it will be difficult for young people to give them a promising future. But I see that Central Asia is doing well in doing so, and as well the remarks of the President were very promising in this regard. So keep the momentum, execute what you have on your reform agenda as well on the future, and I'm sure that then the answer will be a very positive one for a promising future. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much for sharing your optimism. We shall leave and see what will actually happen. Now, we have some choices to make. I believe we have to conclude this session at 3 sharp, because what happens at 3 is lunch for everybody. The Kyrgyz...
can we ask for the permission? We had a short 3-minute presentation following the proposition on public-private dialogue. This is a private company which also wanted to make some video rolic, I think.
Yes, please. I was about to propose that. So we are supposed to see a presentation of one concrete initiative exactly on the Uzbek-Kyrgyz border of a logistics center.
Yes, I like you. I like your country, and there was hunting as well.
Добрый день, уважаемые участники форума. Большое спасибо за приглашение. Меня зовут Улан Максымбеков, я являюсь генеральным директором компании «Кыргыз Экоэкспорт». С марта прошлого года мы строим индустриально-торгово-логистический центр в Алабукинском районе Джалалабадской области Республики Кыргызстан. На сегодняшний день нам выделено 50 гектаров земли, 5 мегаватт электроэнергии. Кроме того, мы построили дороги, провели водоснабжение и решили другие инфраструктурные вопросы. Этот проект мы строим как новый мост между двумя государствами. Мы издревле жили по соседству, у нас общая история. Мы предлагаем развитие взаимоотношений через новые мосты, через новые экономические вены. По требованию времени мы не должны ограничиваться только торговыми взаимоотношениями. Необходимо переходить к совместному производству, к совместной переработке и выстраивать логистику через торгово-логистические центры. Последние мировые события полностью изменили ситуацию. Ограничения многих государств, санкции приводят к закрытию годами выработанных путей и открытию новых дорог. Изменилась логистика мира. Мы пришли к вам с новым предложением и приглашаем в индустриально-торгово-логистический центр Байтала. Мы приглашаем вас на рынки государств Евразийского экономического союза. Мы предлагаем создание совместных предприятий с компаниями Артсофт Текстиль, Наманган Фармплант, Роустон Курылиш Сервис мы планируем совместную работу. Кроме этого, с Республиканской ассоциацией Караколчулик у нас большой трансконтинентальный проект по многим направлениям сельского хозяйства. Начало этого проекта начинается в Монголии и заканчивается в странах Персидского залива. Мы готовы к сотрудничеству. Уважаемые участники форума, главным фактором конкурентоспособности является ценообразование. Все упирается в цену. Одной из причин ценообразования являются дороги. Если мы сократим дороги, если мы изменим логистику, откроем новые ворота, то мы создадим новые условия. Позвольте представить вам схему новой дороги. Если мы дадим международный статус постам Касансай-Баймак и откроем новые ворота, мы сократим дорогу минимум на 300 километров. Это вы можете увидеть на карте. Мы предлагаем открытие новых ворот. Это повлияет на экономическое развитие наших государств. Это новые возможности для нас. Давайте воспользуемся этими возможностями. Индустриально-торгово-логистический центр Байтала приглашает вас к сотрудничеству. Спасибо за внимание. Желаю всем мира, добра, благополучия и поздравляю с праздником Норус.
Желаем вам успеха. Okay, we do have less than 10 minutes. I would like to offer the audience the opportunity to raise hands and ask a couple questions. We cannot take more than two. I believe we have microphones in the audience, in the hall. We do. No, we don't have microphones. So I'm told we don't have microphones and we are not going to have any questions from the audience. Would you like to summarize, Mr. Gulamov?
Thank you. Yes, and it's a round table, so we exchanged, I think that it was a very fruitful exchange of the views, and several points. All speakers, I am very glad that all speakers suggested that development regional cooperation is important, and it is really important, and especially in presentations of our neighboring countries, Pakistan and Kyrgyzstan, that we share the same view and we share the same approach. And in introductions of our colleague from the Procter & Gamble in Turkey Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Kurt Aslanoglu, yeah, am I right? Yeah. So I was very impressed by your presentation of global value chains, and I really wish that we will also could have 450 suppliers, local suppliers to Procter & Gamble, and just open your secret what we should to do this, and we can talk separately. But of course, we are ready to develop the projects, and if there'll be some actions from the government or from some projects to be implemented, we are ready. So, and in digital issues from Leon, and I think that it's really important. It's really important, and one of the way of overcoming our landlockedness is to develop digital services and digital economy, because for all this data and others, they don't need any transportation costs. So, and also, in my understanding, what you said about the data sovereignty, it also becomes very important, and even for the recent times, people understand that how it is important in reality. And Mr. Mangold, Eric said that it's your optimism, but I think that this is the reality you understand better than anyone. And we welcome it. And of course, many challenges are around. And many challenges, many problems, many issues. But one thing that we should understand is that we referred several times to the old Silk Route. So it started 2,000 years ago. But I think that 2,000 years ago, there was much more dangerous world. And they didn't have internet, they didn't have Wi-Fi, they didn't have railroads, but our ancestors developed in cooperations together all these trade links. So I think that we should also go forward. Thank you.
Well, time to conclude indeed. I think the word, as I said earlier, the words we've been using and abusing perhaps at this round table were all about together, jointly, cooperation, etc., etc. The problem with cooperation, and we teach it in economics, is that very often it breaks down. So cooperation is actually a very complex notion. It takes more than one party. You depend on others. You have to listen to other people's interests, and you have to consider them in your decision making. And cooperation takes a lot of time. Takes a lot of time. That's why I believe we need, of course, dialogue at the level of the nations in the Central Asian region, both its neighbors in the West and in the East and in the South. So that kind of dialogue must continue. But I also very much welcome the idea of public-private partnerships, because it's not just for the private sector to undertake this immense investment needs. It's really something that the governments of the region should work together with the private sector on. And maybe with that thought, I will conclude this meeting, this roundtable. Thank you very much, and we will of course continue in other sessions today. Thank you. Sharp on time. It's not Uzbekistan, it's Switzerland.